Welcome to the Mama's Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here. Mama's Well. Yes, she is. Well, hello. If this is your first time to the Mama's Well podcast, let me tell you what we're all about. I am a parent of 5, and 3 are biological sons, and 2 little girls were adopted through foster care. And I am learning that parenting is a lot about me learning to reparent myself, learning to understand more about who I am and how I interact. And when I learn to do that, I am much more effective as a parent for my kiddos. And that takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of intentionality. And so if you're interested in that, you're in the right place. Also wanted to say thank you last week for taking the time to give Mama's Well a review and ratings. That was super fun to read. My sweet daughter, Trinity, was giggling with my phone yesterday, and this morning I saw that she had given me a review. And so if you haven't done your review, make sure you scroll down and find the one Trinity gave me, because she says that I am doing a good job. So if she thinks I'm doing a good job, I'm just going to keep going. So thank you for that. Thank you very much. Today I want to talk about, I have a friend of mine back. You've met her on episode 69, and she is a foster parent with me. We are mentors at our agency, DePelchin, here in the Houston area. But this gal is she is doing some serious hard work. She is a single mom. She works full time, and she is what we call foster only. So she is fostering babies, and I think we'll ask her to be sure, but I think there have been 12 children that she has loved wholeheartedly and launched back into the world, either to their to family members, kinship placements, kinship adoptions, unrelated adoptions, and then some back to birth parents. So my friend loves hard, and she has grieved hard, and we're going to ask her about that. But I'm not going to talk too much about her anymore, because I want to introduce you again to my friend, Lauren Bedevian. Hi.
Hi, it's good to be back.
I'm glad you're back. You have had an explosion, and I'm not just talking about the diapers you just changed.
Yeah, right.
You've had an explosion in your house recently,
yes,
as of a few days.
Correct.
Okay.
As of a few days ago, I added 2 to my house.
So you have 3 under 3.
Correct.
Yeah, we're going to get into that, but you're in it in a deep way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. So, okay, Lauren, I want to get a little background on you, because I don't know some things about you.
Okay.
What prompted this in you in the first place? I've never asked you that question, but I would love to know, what got you started?
Yeah, so basically, I really had the desire and calling to be a mom, and I was perpetually single, and obviously working in a church and being single and still having that desire to somehow connect and help children in a way that, I couldn't otherwise. And I was really just looking into what are options, how can I have that mom experience, because I'm a children's ministry director at Memorial Drive United Methodist Church in Houston, and I get to mother children in a sense at church every day, but I was really looking for that deeper connection. And so I kind of explored the fostering situation. And I heard of the great need for foster parents to infants and newborns, specifically people like myself who are willing to foster only, because there are quite a few families who are really interested in adopting from the foster care system, but not a lot of people who are willing to kind of what I call stand in the gap gap for those families who are kind of dealing with crisis that need help temporarily. And so I was like, that is the perfect calling for me, because I work in a church. They're a very supportive church community, and I can get this mom experience, this fulfillment, kind of a selfish, gratifying a fulfillment for myself, while also helping children and families in need.
Yeah, I think the best things in life are when it meets a need for us and then simultaneously meets a need for somebody else. It's like, I call it symbiotic.
Right.
It's like you're meeting something and you're being given to, while at the same time you're giving to somebody else.
Absolutely.
So when did you first decide you want to be a foster parent?
So that basically happened. I made a move from a previous church I was working for in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I moved to Houston, and I had been in Houston probably for 2 or 3 months just before I started looking into it. I moved in May, and then by August, I really started seriously considering the process. I researched agencies in my area, tried to figure out, was this going to be a possibility? And that was back in 2015 that I started doing all that.
Did you know any other single foster parents at that time?
No.
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 Okay. And what were you? Were you scared? Were you just like gung ho? I weren't thinking about it. Just go for it. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Did you have fears and anxieties? Did your family have fears and anxieties?
Yeah,
for you?
definitely. So I was afraid, probably just because it was an unknown situation that I was venturing out to. But I was really excited because I just felt like, being a Christian person myself and working for a church, I felt it was a calling. And when you have a calling, you kind of you don't run away from it. Yeah. If you run away from it, that usually ends up bad for people,
something like whales
Jonah, right, exactly, stuff like that, right? But no, I just was very excited, but also very scared. I didn't tell really many people. I only told maybe a couple of people. I didn't even tell my parents or my family when I was first looking into the possibility of becoming a foster parent. And then I didn't tell the broader community, like my friend group or anything like that, until I was actually finished with classes and I was licensed. Just because I was afraid of what other people might think. And I live in a family where even when I did tell my parents, they were just very concerned about my well-being because they love me very much. And they're like, well, how are you going to have time for this? And you have to take care of yourself. And then also the other challenge of, wanting children to be raised up with a 2-parent household. Every child needs a mom and a dad in their home. Yeah. And so that struggle was something that I kind of had to overcome with my family. And even to this day, with some people who question my intentions with, well, you're only one person, and don't children need 2 families? But I felt so strongly called to it that I didn't let that deter me from the process. I just kind of kept powering through, went through the trainings, told a few close friends that I was going to be doing it, reached out for some support because as a single person, you definitely need support, right? And then I just kind of moved forward from there.
Yeah. I mean, I know you need support. I mean, I watch you on Facebook. You and I are in a group text with the other mentor, and I mean, it's rough what you're doing.
Right.
And do you ever experience, I know this is kind of vulnerable talking to all these people, you don't even know who's listening, but like, what are the fears that you experience sometimes? Like, I experience, like, especially fostering. Right. So and you've not experienced the adoption side yet, but once that adoption happens, I didn't even realize the amount of fear that I was carrying until it was over.
Right.
But you are kind of in a perpetual state of fear and unknown with these kids.
Right.
Like, how do you handle all that?
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot. How do I handle that today? I mean, every single day it's, am I doing good enough? Am I enough for these children? Am I giving them all that I have? Am I giving them too much? And I think as a single person, I'm just thinking, like, am I doing the right things? Like, how will I know if I'm doing the right things or the wrong things? There's nobody else to really step in and fill that gap that's living with me, that's living with them constantly, that can help guide those decisions. And so, yeah, there's a lot of fears in that. And just being lonely, I guess, is just a major fear of having to make these decisions and deal with these circumstances by myself. Is hard, because even though I have some amazing friends and amazing support system, and my coworkers at work and my boss at work is just all really supportive, at the end of the day, nobody quite understands the situations that I deal with, because the nature of foster care is we get handed all this confidential information and we're supposed to keep it pretty tight and, not share the vulnerable, deep darkness of the foster system to the extended public. So that ends up getting pretty buried deep within yourself unless you find an outlet. And the way that I've really dealt with it is obviously through my faith, through my Christianity. I pour myself into worship and all other devotional type situations in church, but also I do seek help therapy. That's definitely important, a regular part of my existence, because I could not do it without my worship community. I could not do it without a counselor.
Yeah, good. I mean, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I think sometimes, especially the kind of person that's drawn to caring for others, being a caretaker. I mean, typically that's really what we are. We are caretakers. Whether we're caretaking of children or whether we're caretaking of elderly or anyone really, you're constantly pouring out. And even pastoral role, that's a caretaker.
Yes.
And so you're like constantly pouring. And I think sometimes there's a message in our head that if we try to pour back in, we might be selfish, or we might like think that, I don't exactly know, but I grew up in church, and still it's a big part of our lives. But there can be even some messages that come from Christianity that like, okay, that's not, it's selfish to give to yourself in a way. Did you experience any of that? Or,
definitely.
It's kind of a head game for me.
I battle that continually. Now that I have 3 children, ages 3 and under, there's some things that I used to like to go do. I'm big on, getting my nails done. And if you look closely at my nails, you can see they're all torn up right now. And I used to go get massages every once in a while, but I haven't gotten one in a very long time. And so I do find that often self-care kind of takes a back burner. And that's really important to bring that forward. And I'm trying to figure out ways that I can
do that.
do that
Does
still.
your therapist talk to you about things like
yes,
that?
Yes, definitely. And it's really about asking for help. And I'm just awful at that. And asking for people to help take care of the kids and help take care of you. And it just feels, I don't know how you combat that internal dialogue that it's okay to take a night off and it's okay to ask for help. It's just something you have to constantly battle with.
Well, I'm very proud of you, because I'm watching you do it in a real life, real time scenario right now, as 2 children just entered back into your care. And I read a post. I spent a long time. My husband kept asking me, I think it was last night, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm reading Lauren's post and all her comments, because you put out a post about, not giving details of what was going on, but essentially that 3 more children were coming back, or 2 more children coming, making a total of 3. And you have a community that just really is rallying around you. Like, what can I bring you? I'm sending money, I'm sending food, I'm coming to play, and like, how did you do that? Because that is hard to ask for help.
Yeah, I really just focus on educating the population about what foster care is, because I found myself, as most foster parents do, that you are the only person you tend to know in that community sometimes. Like myself, I didn't really know any other foster parents when I got into fostering. And so I built up my community to be aware of the problem that is foster care, that is the system. And so I used my social media, my Facebook, my Instagram as a platform to help educate the public on what fostering is and what it means. And I push myself to be vulnerable in some cases. There are, of course, some posts that I never end up posting because it's just a little bit too deep and too dark. But I try to share with people the problem that is this system, and just expand their knowledge on what this is. I like to share all this information because not everybody can do what I do. And I get that all the time. People come to me and I don't know how you do it. They always say that.
Oh, yeah.
And I say, I don't know either. I don't know. But it really is because of the people that support me that I'm able to do what I do. And so I use my social media as just a platform to help people understand that there are these children that we don't even realize walking down the street are dealing with such intense emotions and intense secrets that they have to keep. And then these parents who are helping try to guide them through this world, I just try to make the world realize that there is this issue around us and we need to be looking out for those people because these children, they can't take care of themselves. And if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? And
you're bringing compassion and awareness to a situation that has typically been, I'm so ashamed to say this, but I've said it on the podcast before, so I might as well say it again. But prior to my getting involved in foster care, I knew nothing about it.
Right.
I only saw it as some sort of government welfare thing. I didn't even know.
Right.
I'm so, I say I'm ashamed, but I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And what we don't know, we don't know. And so you're using I get it. And it makes sense. And I love, I didn't tell you, I was going to ask you about this, but I think it's a safe thing to ask. But every child, I've watched you move through, I don't know, 4 placements maybe. I've seen several children come in and out of your home. They stay a while.
Yeah.
But when I first met you was probably about 2016.
Okay.
So I've seen a lot.
So you've probably seen at least 8 of my children, I would say.
And each child, you give such a little endearing name.
Yes. Yeah. So
tell us about how you do, since we're on the social media thing, tell what you do, because that's really cool.
Yeah. So I really try to help bring an identity to the children that I'm fostering, but with the privacy and the confidentiality that is within foster care, you have to be very careful about what details you put out on public. And so I always give my children a social media nickname. And so I have, from the start, I had my bundle because she was my bundle of joy. Her name was Joy. And then
Nobody knew her name was Joy.
Nobody knew her name was Joy.
Bundle.
We just called my bundle.
Yeah.
And this is my bundle. And so every baby has this little tag. And so we had bundle and we had bumblebee and we had my little mouse and my turtle and we had a penguin, and they're usually animals cute. Or we had one that was Sweetie because her name was Kiki. And so it's just like you have different names and different taglines for what each of the babies are, and I just kind of come up with it as I meet them, as I know them. My current baby is my chickadee because she's my 12th baby, and so I was thinking of a dozen eggs and chickens leg eggs, and there she's a chickadee. So that's why I have a chickadee, and so
and the
I
two
just
that
kind of
just
come
returned
up.
To you
My
are
two,
Bean and Bug.
Bean and Bug just returned to me, and so I just kind of try to give them an identity. That way, it's not just an unknown child or this child. Because I want them to have a personality. And what's great about my social media platform is that there are some people who've never met my children in person. I mean, there might have even been some children that you've never met in person.
No,
but yet you knew them as Bean and Bug.
Yeah,
or you knew them as Chickadee. And I get questions like that a lot is, oh, well, how's Chickadee doing? Or how's Bean and Bug? I was like, you know their real name, right? You can call them their real name. It's okay. I just can't say that on social media. But I want to make sure that every child that's in my care feels like they had a purpose, they had an identity, and they have a past that's going to remain with them for the rest of their life. That's just my
And that chronicling of their life, you take and you put it into a book that they take with them. Correct.
Yes. They take home a very giant binder that has all the pictures that I've ever taken and just organized. It's like a scrapbook. And the great thing about it is I keep a digital file of it. And so in cases where, there's some issues of the book getting lost, or there's a, God forbid, fire, or, the child ends up in a bad situation and the book is destroyed, I still have a backup copy of that. And so I want to be able to give that on.
That's so beautiful. And I just talked to an adoptee this morning on the phone who she was referencing the person who kept her for 8 days of her life. And I just forgot the girl's name, but the lady's name, but she remembered. But you, at some point, you could potentially have someone 20 years from now reach out to you and you can say, I know you. I loved
Right.
you. I cared for you. And here is your story of the time you spent with me. Oh, that makes me cry. It's
Right.
so beautiful.
I love it. I love it. I just want these kids to know how loved they are and how cherished they are. I had one baby in my care for 10 days, and he has a place in my heart and on my wall. In my home, I have framed photos of every child that's on the wall of my house because
That's really
they
neat.
stay in my heart forever.
Yeah.
It's not just a
Yeah.
come and go situation. I know I'm just a foster parent and I'm not adopting long term at this point, but all the children have a very special place in my heart.
Yeah. That brings me to another part of what you're doing that just, and I know you hear this all the time. I heard it all the time. Every single foster parent who's ever been a foster parent, who's ever been introduced as that to anyone will ask this. And that is, how do you give them back?
And
And you know, some people, I've read books, I've seen social media posts, and people can get offended at that question, you know, like, how do you give them back? Or people will say, you're just such a special person, you know, or, oh, you're just, you know, what do they say? Like, basically, they're elevating you. And some people take offense because they think that, I think this is what they think. I don't know. But I think they think that they're saying, I couldn't do that. Maybe I'm too heartsy, and you must not be very heartsy,
right,
or
yeah.
whatever.
They definitely,
Yeah.
it does have that connotation when people say, well, I could never give them back. And I was like, well, are you thinking that I'm like some sort of a heartless
that you're hard-hearted.
person?
Yes,
Right.
But I don't think that's the deal.
No.
I think that what they're saying is, I'm afraid of grief,
Yeah.
and you must be brave, or something. You know
Or
what I mean?
something.
Yeah, and so we're all afraid of grief, just to
Yes.
clear that up. But you have like this practice of like loving all in. It's very apparent just by watching. I mean, I know you, but also watching your social media. I mean, like loving all in, and then being with grief, but also with joy and with pleasure, turning over a child. And I know some of these children have gone to places that you've actually connected them to.
Yeah.
And then some have gone back, you know, only one I think went back to biological parents or something,
Correct.
but most have gone on to adoptions, and you have contact with all of them. Okay, I'm giving a lot because I just remembering all this stuff, but
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell everybody it's hard.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's definitely hard. And that is hard when people tell me that. People will come, I could never do that. I could never do that. And my answer is some days I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
There's been several times over this last, 72 hours that I've had 3 children in my care all alone that I've thought, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah.
But I
You
can
mean
do that.
You mean return?
Return a child. And there's just been that several situations where I'm like, how am I going to give these children up? But I know that it's the right thing to do. Sometimes the right thing to do is not always the easiest thing to do, but you have to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And I know for the child's growth and development and for their futures that what I'm giving them in the moment is the most important thing. And so I just have to keep reminding myself that I'm willing to hurt a little bit in order for that child to get love. Because it's not about me, it's about them.
Yeah.
And so you just have to constantly understand that it's a selfless thing and you're focusing on that child and not yourself.
Yeah.
And just lots of counseling.
And you know, one thing I remember the first time we gave a child back to her birth mother, which was a wonderful thing, but it was very sad. And I was very sad the whole entire weekend prior. But there was something after we did it that was super like empowering. And I think sometimes we're more afraid of what we don't know versus once we do it, you realize, now you've realized after, is it 12? Have you?
Yeah,
had,
12,
okay.
12 babies.
Yeah, after you've done this the first time, you're kind of like, okay, I did it. It hurt, but I'm okay.
Right.
And then the second time you're like, I did it. It hurt, but not as bad as the first time, and I'm okay.
Right.
And then every time you do something like that's hard and you realize that you're still alive
Yes.
and you still did it, and you start to see the rewards because you know where all these kids are, most of them, and you're seeing their lives unfold, and you're like, so you're being affirmed
Yes, yes. And some cases are different. Every case in foster care is different. And so, really feeling the grief of each situation is going to be different. The best cases that I have, which is quite a few, honestly, are the ones that I get to keep in touch with. That's the best and most joyful thing that I can ever experience is being able to have a continued relationship with a child that was in my care, even if it's just being friends with their parents on social media, or I have a family that, I helped kind of arrange their adoption basically
Yeah.
because the child was in my care and I said that this family should be the one who adopts them, and they kind of got connected that way. They come to my church now every so often, and I've gone to birthday parties, and it's really a great experience to get to have a connection with them and to know that what I did had purpose, and that's life-giving, and that makes the grief worth it,
Yeah. Yeah. It's really neat. And in your heart, I mean, do you ever see yourself adopting? I know the answer. I don't know if you're going to say it out on public. Now it's
No,
recorded.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that one day adoption will be in my story. I don't know how soon, being a Christian woman that I am myself, I know that that's going to be definitely a sign from God, and God will kind of put that on my heart at the moment. But I'm just kind of taking it day by day and case by case. And one day I know that I will have a forever family. It's just I feel called right now to be a temporary family to those in need. So
Yeah. That's good stuff, Lauren. I think that's good.
It's hard, but it's good. You know?
What was the hardest, if you don't mind sharing, like what was the time, or maybe you haven't had it yet, or maybe you're in the middle of it, I don't know, but the hardest time that you ever had letting one of your kiddos go? Like, was there ever a time that you were like, maybe I'm supposed to be the one? Because I'm sure CPS asks you, right?
Yes, every single time, even though they know going into it that I am just a foster parent. I am not intending on adopting. Every single time they ask me, will you adopt this child? And that is the hardest. That's the hardest, because anytime someone asks me to adopt and I feel like I say no, I'm rejecting that child. And that's so very hard for me, because I don't want to feel like I'm rejecting a child. I just know that there's something else better for this child. Not that I'm not good, but I just know that there's a different future for that child that's better than what I'm going to be offering at the moment.
Do you always know going in, like, in other words, as a case starts to come to a close, there usually starts with, there's a goal, and a lot of times, I think the first goal is almost always reunification.
Yes.
So that's the goal going in, and then the goal might change to unrelated adoption or related adoption or something like that. Like, do you start to see the pieces, and this probably helps with your grieving, but do you start to see the pieces line up? Like, you start to know, okay, this family wants to adopt this child. You start to get to know that family. I mean, how does this work?
Yes, that is usually how it works. You kind of start by seeing the map, as I would call it, layout. And sometimes it's easier and sometimes it's harder, because there are cases where I look at my life and what I have and the support system I have, and where they might be going may not be the best place. And that's definitely a hard challenge for me to struggle with. But yeah, you basically know what's step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's how it's progressing. And I don't know.
Yeah. Have the families been, for the most part, open to keeping you connected?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly all the families. There's only, I think I have 3 out of the 12 that I'm not in contact at all with.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's a pretty good ratio that I have. I would say, 3 out of 12, I don't know where they are in life. But, I make sure that when I send my babies, they have all of their pictures and all of contact information, if it's safe to do so. And so that hopefully in the future, I'll be able to be that person that somebody could come back to and say, you were a part of my life. And I'll be like, yes, absolutely.
That's going to be a really cool day, isn't
Absolutely. I look forward to that.
That's going to be a super cool day. Have you ever considered throwing in the towel and just giving this up?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Yeah.
There are times that have been really, really hard. And there have been many times when I've said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Just because the grief gets so intense. And you get to a place where you're just so depressed. And being single, it's just the loneliness, the ultimate loneliness that when a child leaves my home, there's nothing. There's
Yeah.
no sounds. There's no dirty clothes laying around.
Yeah.
There's no toys scattered about the house. There's no bottles. There's no formula. And it's just an empty feeling.
Yeah.
And
What do you do that night? What do you do? Do you turn on Netflix? Do you go find a friend to have dinner? I mean, what do you do?
usually I will watch TV and I'll probably just stay in bed for
Yeah.
a long period of time
Yeah.
because it's just kind of a grief that washes
Yeah.
over you. I've done multiple things. One, I went to a movie theater because with babies, I never get to go to a movie
Yeah.
theater, you
Yeah.
know? And so I remember me and a friend, we went to go see a movie. And so sometimes I try to keep busy and active and ignore the emptiness. And then sometimes I just sit in that emptiness.
Yeah.
And I find that kind of healing in
Yeah,
itself.
that's good.
So yeah, it
Yeah,
just
it's
depends on the
very good.
situation and the case and where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. Wow. Does it make? I'm remembering moments of thinking that my daughters were going to leave and go back to their parents, which we were foster only too, by the way, Lauren.
Yeah, I know. I'll be a failed foster parent, is I
You'll
think
be a
what they
failed
call
foster
it.
parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do have that was a really hard moment because if I wanted them to go where they were supposed to be, but I was just having to trust God, and it's such a scary place. And I've been in contact recently with the lady that's in one of my book studies that, you know, she's getting close to the end of her case, and she just loves her daughter that she's had for 10 months, and I feel her pain of thinking about the possibility that her life is about to change and forever, and it's really hard to be with.
Right.
It's
It's important to reach out to people who've dealt with the same situation,
Yeah.
to find those people who really, really understand. Because if you just talk to your friends and family about it, I remember getting very, very angry, and I expressed that anger in probably a not healthy way at somebody who approached me after my first child left and said, well, isn't that what you signed up for?
Yeah.
And I'm like, absolutely not. I did not sign up to have my heart
hurt
broken,
like this.
but
Yeah.
in a way I did.
Yeah.
And so you really need to seek people.
Well, that was not very compassionate.
Yeah, they just don't
Note
understand.
to listeners, do not say that.
Things I know. I want to write a book. Things not to say to foster parents. It should be a thing. But no, I think you need to surround yourself with people who really understand that grief, who understand that loss, because otherwise you'll sit in that loneliness and that darkness for just an unhealthy period of time.
Yeah, sounds horrible.
Really rough.
Sounds horrible. Let me ask you one more question. I
Okay.
mean, I probably have more than that, but I just on the same topic. So single parent, I know there's a lot of you out there. Okay. I don't know that they have the support that you have, which is why I wanted to definitely have you talk to this. And you've shared, you're educating people, and I mean, you're asking for help. That's hard.
Yes. And if you follow my entire story, I have not been as good about that as I have been recently.
Yeah.
I've been better and better as the years have passed. And I've just gotten to a point for myself where I physically cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
And I really need the support. And I've realized also in that is that it is helping other people serve the foster care system in a way that they never would have otherwise, because there's so many people out there who are not ever going to have a touch on fostering, but because they know me, because they know the story, because they've seen me and my 3 kids, they have now impacted the foster care system in a way they never would have.
Yes.
And so it's really important for me to give other people that opportunity to chime in and be supportive.
Do you feel that right now, Lauren?
Yes, I
Yeah.
do. I feel that right now.
Yeah.
It's an overwhelming sense of gratitude that I feel, because I have these 2 children who have come into my life again, and the community that I have around me who's never even met these children in person, but they know that these children deserve to be loved.
Yeah.
And it's just an overwhelming sense of appreciation.
That's good stuff. That's very good stuff. So, I think you've already said this, but one of the questions that I wanted you to kind of wrap this up with is, and we have a dear friend who used to work with us here, Nicole. If she's listening, she already knows. I've told you that want y'all to be in contact. But 2 women in my book study that just finished up, they're single foster parents, and so there is a population of people doing this single.
Yes.
Definitely.
for
Y'all
sure.
need like your own support group. Actually, I don't know if you do, because y'all need a support group with, like, it's almost like we have to have this diversity to understand each other.
Right.
But what advice would you give? I know the first thing you're going to say is, A, you can do it.
Yeah, right.
But
You can do it.
what advice would you give to okay, these are the two areas that I see like you really have some unique words of wisdom and encouragement for. A, single parents that work full time, let me add, because you're
Right. I have a full-time job. I work 40 hours plus a week. Yes.
Yeah. So full time
Yes.
working. We can address the childcare thing
Right.
too. But then, so advice to that. But then the second advice, which we've talked about a lot, is just that the foster only piece. Obviously there's a need because you've done it 12 times.
Yes.
But why would placements come to a parent that's not, I mean, I really want to know this, that's not planning on adopting? Because obviously if you think, okay, this child is like, it's not best for them to stay with you a whole year and then go to someone else.
Right.
I mean, good, better, best, right?
Yes.
So how does that happen? There's just not enough, or
There's not enough, but mainly the children that typically come into my care are ones that they really are having high hopes that they will be able to return to their parents. And so they come into my care as opposed to somebody who's adoption oriented, because they really don't want to break the adoptive parents' hearts either. And they don't want to create additional trauma for a child. And so by placing them in a home like mine, who's focused on fostering and taking care of them in the moment and not 20 years from now, is really beneficial for the child as well. And so that's why I get those calls pretty frequently, is because, well, we think there might be a grandma in Idaho, but we're not quite sure. We just need them to be here for a little bit. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Whereas other families aren't necessarily going to be okay with that.
And how long, what's the average little bit that you've had?
The shortest, I did have one for 10 days.
Yeah.
So that was the
And they
shortest.
went back home, or they went to a
No, they
relative?
went to another foster home,
Oh, okay.
and I don't know if they were adopted from that home or what happened
Okay.
afterwards.
That's one of the three, huh?
10 days,
Okay.
and my average used to be about 4 months, but it's recently increased to about 8 months average.
Okay.
And so it just
Okay.
depends on the longevity of the situation.
Yeah.
And people, they come to foster only homes because there's really other options that are going to happen, which they say quickly, but in the foster system is
Nothing's
never quickly.
quick. Nothing's quick. Okay. So, okay, now I forgot my questions.
You asked a lot of questions.
I know I
So
did, right?
I think the first one,
Sorry.
the first one was like about single parenting and
Yeah,
how
what would you say?
how you can do it. It's really so strongly about your support system and knowing who you can trust and who you maybe can't trust just as much, and surrounding yourself with those that you can trust and lean on in times of need. Because if you have that, you're going to be okay. You're not going to want to throw in the towel. And that's basically the only reason I was able to accept 3 placements working full time, is because I know that I have people rallying behind me who are saying, we know you can do this. And so even in my darkest times when I'm like, I can't do this, I just changed 3 dirty diapers when we were trying to be somewhere on time, and now I'm late, and I'm not a late person, but I look back and I'm like, but these kids are worth it, and they need me, and it's going to be okay. And to address the daycare situation and the financial situation, because that's also a challenge too. Being single, I only have one income, and I work for a church, so that's I'm not like a doctor or a lawyer, so that's nothing fancy coming in my way. But use the services that are out there and available to you.
Okay.
Really seek out those services, because there's just so many options out there available for the children you're caring for. And if you're having problems like I am, getting charities or handouts. Sorry, I talk with my hands a lot. I've been trying not to. Think about it for the children. It's not for you. Use the women, infant, children, the WIC. Use your daycare stipends. Use all the resources you possibly can for your children, because that's something that they automatically qualify for. And as a single person with a very limited income, you don't have to worry about spending what income you do have on those things that are already going to be naturally provided for you. So as a single person, make sure you seek out those resources, and it could be foster closets are available. I was able to get, and I'm getting today, this evening, 2 mattresses for the kids and that's free. And that's just because the closet has it.
That's awesome.
Don't feel like you have to do this alone. And I'm telling myself that more than I'm telling the listeners that, just because I have to continually remind myself, how can I encourage myself to seek out that help, and how can I equip our community to also get involved in foster care? Because by me sharing this story, they're getting involved.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you're offering them a gift. Like, you see it as a gift.
Yes.
I see it as a gift. I mean, yes, it's hard.
Yes.
Like, you know, yes, it's hard. There can be a tension between it being hard and it also being a blessing.
Right.
And I think what we're doing is saying, here's an opportunity. I need help. It's hard for me to ask, but I'm going to do it because these kids are worth it.
Right. I'm putting myself last, and I'm putting them before me, because I'm not asking for them to be giving me something directly. So that makes it easier for me.
Yeah,
I'm asking it for them.
Yeah.
I need help finding a daycare for them. I need help finding beds for them.
Yeah.
I need help getting groceries for them.
Yeah.
And putting myself out there allows other people to be involved in our story, which makes it even more beautiful.
I love it. Let's end on that, shall we?
I'm happy to do that. Yeah, that's great.
That was good. Thank you, Lauren. Because I know, like, this was a sacrifice for you to come out. But I also know what you just said. This is a sacrifice because this raises awareness.
Exactly. That's why it's worth it.
Yeah, this raises awareness. This, maybe you just encouraged someone that's like, you know, can I do this? Because I'm single. I don't make very much money, you know, blah, blah, blah. All the things that we get scared about. Or I couldn't give them away.
I could never give them up.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's hard.
You're stronger than you think.
You're stronger than you think. And every time you do it, you get a little stronger and a little stronger. So thank you. Thank you. And Lauren, one more thing. Would you put is it okay to put, are your social media is like super private, or how does that work?
I'm very happy to share some of my social medias with you. I can give you the links to that. My Instagram is basically the one that I do specifically for foster care awareness. So I do have it kind of locked down, but I'm looking at changing the privacy settings.
Well, whatever you want to share with us, we'll put it in the show notes so they can get in contact with you. And
Definitely.
You know what? If you're scared, it's okay. We are too.
Yes.
So don't let fear be the thing that keeps you down. And if you're holding a baby right now listening to this going, oh my gosh, the goal just changed from unrelated adoption back to reunification. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. First of all, those goals can shift on a dime. That's one thing I'd say. But second of all, you're going to be equipped. You don't need to worry about that moment until that moment happens. That's something I learned in that grieving process, is like, I spend a lot of time worrying about something that never even happened. So hang in there. You know, you're doing great work, and it is hard work, and you're not alone. And so don't forget, share this podcast. This is a really powerful one. This is a podcast that can help you educate your community. Like, if you don't know how to ask for help, this is a great podcast that explains why we need help. We all need help. So share it, and we'll see you next week.
Mama's well.
Yes, she is.